Stay ready is the mentality birthed through the trials and triumphs of life as an NFL long snapper. Join me in conversations with teammates, mentors, friends, and family who helped me realize that stay ready is so much more. A deeply rooted principle of life in all things faith, family, and football. Welcome back to another Stay Ready podcast episode. We've been gone for a little while. It feels like because we've backlogged some of the episodes. But today I got a friend of mine, Josh Cuthbert of Alpha Strength. And last episode we talked to Jeremy Holt of Athlete. And these two kind of go hand in hand. So that's why I wanted to piggyback this episode with Josh and share a story and talk about really the chemistry and the relationship that him and Jeremy Holt have here in Nashville and just the community that they've grown. So here's Josh Cuthbert, man. Thank you so much for coming today. We've kind of been in the works of getting you on here, and we've kind of been, I met you probably officially like a year ago through Justin Todd, who's been on this podcast, and he's my trainer, but just like it's kind of a small world within this industry right here in Nashville. So we kind of always cross paths some way, some form, but wanted to have you on here to share your story, just talk about just the community and the culture that you've helped grow here. You know, you and Jay Holt kind of have this little thing going on that's really unique and pretty special, but also kind of just two different entities kind of working together. So we'll talk about that, but like just kind of give us a little background on you, where you're from, what brought you to Nashville, give us a little football background.
Yeah, perfect.
From there, man.
First thing, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be here. So I'm originally from South Florida. A lot of people don't know that because I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
I would have never guessed.
Never guessed it, right? Like I
would have said Iowa or Missouri or like.
So I'm from Belglade, Florida, which I don't know if you know anything about the state. It's right off of Lake Okeechobee, about an hour north of Miami. So it is South Florida, but it's not like South Florida. Went to a small high school, football-driven high school, state championships, all that stuff. I went on to long snap at Louisiana Tech, so I think we spoke about that initially. And that was really kind of where I fell in love with the weight room. I always knew that either physical therapy or a strength coach, something of the works, is where I wanted to be. One of my first compliments was probably my sophomore year. In a college weight room, the first two racks are the strong guys. I got bumped down to rack 4. And I don't know what the cursing rules are on this show, but I was freaking pissed. Right? I'm like, Damon, what the hell? And he said, Cuthbert, it's not because you're not strong enough to be on rack 1 or 2. It's because I know that you're going to take care of your reps down there and you'll hold somebody else accountable. And I said, well, shit, you might as well just pay me then. I'm coaching down here. So that was early on in my career. Unfortunately, that year, we're going to kind of get into a little story here of kind of the downside. That was the first year that I tore my ACL, which I've done 3 times now, by the way.
Same leg?
Same leg, all this right knee, this daggum thing. Tore my ACL redshirt sophomore year, running down actually on a kickoff against, it was a punt, against Mississippi State. Guy reverses field, I stick it in the ground and she gone. No non-contact, nothing happened. Guy actually runs it back for a touchdown. On film, you can see the guy, he reverses field, and I'm on the floor. I'm like swiping at him as he goes by me, and it's gone. Going to the locker room, they actually said, it feels pretty good. Like yourself, I mean, my legs were a little bit bigger, so I think I was just had enough support there to say it was good. I didn't play the rest of that game. We had 2 bad snaps, a punt and a field goal. We ended up losing that game 14-13.
Oh, wow.
We missed an extra point early. And that was just something that it really hit me. We were going into a bye week. And I remember, we were scheduling surgery, all that stuff. And Sonny Dykes was our head coach then. And I'm sitting on a table, getting stem, getting all the stuff. And he comes up to me, puts his hand on my shoulder. He's, how you feeling? To be honest with you, coach, if they let me take this brace off, I'm just walking around. I feel fine. And he said, well, can you play? What do you mean? What do you mean, can I play? I got a torn ACL. And he said, well, I'm just asking, do you feel like that you could physically snap the ball and run down the field? I said, yes, I do physically feel that way. And he looked at the athletic trainer, and I don't think they'd had that conversation yet.
Sure.
Because his name was Keith Bunch, and his eyes were as big as you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Keith, can I do it? And he said, I mean, we have to get a brace, and, we have to talk to Bundrick, and, there's, some things you won't be able to do. I said, so you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. I said, all right, coach, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Called my dad, same thing. He said, what do you mean you're going to play?
Yeah.
He said, you got 2 more years of eligibility after this.
Yeah.
Like, you got to think about the long term, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, we're 5-1. Our only loss was Mississippi State, and that was probably because I wasn't there.
Yeah, yeah.
And which is like the worst thing you ever want to feel as the snapper.
Yeah.
So I did. I laced up. First couple games, it was pretty strict instructions: snap the ball and avoid contact in any way, shape, or form. Kind of same thing on field goal, snap. Kind of just stay low,
brace yourself.
Yeah, and you're good. But as the season went on, I really just got comfortable.
Yeah.
Same thing. I would recognize if it, we were going left like on a Louis, that if Ryan Allen was our punter at the time and he had
no way.
He was a freaking animal. He was back-to-back great guy, and he would just bomb it. But the good thing about Ryan was at that time, 5-second hang time, 48 yards. He had more inside the 20s than anybody in the nation that year.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have to do that much.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the highlight of that year. We went into the Poinsettia Bowl against TCU. I recovered a fumble. I also got my block knocked off that game.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter, I got concussed, and it was kind of that same thing. Guy reverse field, and I wanted to plant and get out of the way, but I couldn't. And this guy put his head right through my ear hole. Which it was about 3 minutes left in the game, and that was the last snap of the year. But I got awarded, I don't know what they called it, most inspirational or
courageous.
Something of the works.
Yeah.
The program at the end of the year was, labeled, no ACL, no problem.
Okay.
ESPN picked up the story.
Wow, that's cool.
Mostly because I think I recovered that punt.
Yeah.
This guy's running down the field with a brace. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool. And about 10 days after the Poinsettia Bowl, I had the first operation.
Okay.
And that kind of ties back into why I do what I do. I thought my recovery process was shit, if I'm being blunt. The time between when I was cleared from the ATC to when I was ready to play, there's like a 2-month gap in there.
Yeah.
We were a small Division I school. We had 1 athletic trainer. We had 1 head strength coach with 2 interns.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it was. It was either you're good to go or you're going to run, S's on the side.
Yeah.
And I always thought that there needed to be something else, whether there was somebody in charge of that specific individual, not to say like with the injured players, but somebody that can help return to sport, bridge the gap. I've spoke at camps or spoke at conferences on bridging the gap between your surgery and when you're actually ready to play.
Yeah.
And my first internship was at Cal Berkeley.
Okay.
And it was the same strength staff.
Yeah.
And they fired 2 guys the week I got there. And same thing. Damon Harrington looked me in the eye and said, you got to be ready to go. I said, all right, I am. And he kind of took me through, and I actually got offered a position there as an assistant, and they were kind of creating a position like what we were talking about, kind of bridging the gap. Like, these injured guys will either just sit over here on the bike and do nothing, or we can actually do something to get them better.
Sure, yeah.
Went from Berkeley to Ole Miss, got my master's at Ole Miss, worked under Paul Jackson. That was the year when we were paying Kim Dichie, we were paying Treadwell, all those guys were there, and we were really good.
You had Dante Moncrief there with you?
Yeah, Moncrief was there. DJ Jones was there. AJ Brown was there.
Bunch of dogs, man.
Oh, man, they were good.
Yeah.
They were good. Being in that weight room was impressive with those guys. And they had a good culture, too, though. Those guys were lifting, they were training.
Sure.
On top of already being 5-star athletes.
Yeah.
They were getting after it. Long story short, Nashville was the closest thing to Oxford, Mississippi when I was done. So my first job was at Elite Sports Medicine.
Okay.
They had a sister company called Empower, and it was, again, it kind of came back to that same kind of niche that I was in. We had Dr. Elrod and Dr. Moore, who were the team orthos for the Titans.
Yeah.
We had PTs, and then I was the first strength coach that they brought in.
Okay.
So I was responsible for, okay, you've been to the PT for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
You're not ready to go back, but you can go train with Josh for another 4 to 8 weeks, and then you probably are, a little bit more ready. You've exhausted all your PT visits.
Yeah.
Go see him for.
So you kind of build a foundation for these guys before they go back into the natural setting of the team's program.
Yeah, the team. There was high school athletes, college athletes, just general population.
Sure.
And that actually, I tell people all the time, that was the biggest growth of my career because I got to see people from a different lens.
Yeah.
Like I was sitting next to them on the table when they first came out of surgery.
Yeah.
Then I'm with the PT, like how they doing, what are they doing, when can I get them? You're 8 weeks after ACL and they're coming to me and I'm like, man, that seems fast. But they were telling me their limitations. Then I had to think outside the box. What can I do around this limitation to keep them progressing versus 2 PT sessions a week and then they go home.
Okay.
Right. So that's something that I'll never trade because it really made me grow as a coach.
Yeah, I think the perspective that you've gained, and also like what you've bridged that gap between the injury, the surgery, and then when the athlete is ready to return, kind of to maybe not full speed, but maybe like 75%, 80% to where now they can be in a team setting. And it's interesting. You talk about being at a Division I school, but lacking the resources.
Yeah.
I went to a Division II school, so just think about. If La Tech, a bottom tier, Division I,
middle tier.
I'm not. My bad. I don't want to disrespect La Tech, but the drop off is just so great, and it's not. And you even talk about NFL teams. Everyone thinks like the NFL is the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of these guys that come from Bama, Ole Miss, you mentioned USC, Ohio State. They're almost degressing when it comes to 100%, facilities 100%. And the weight room and the resources they have, the nutrition center, the food. It's like, it blows my mind that like, some of these organizations, not all, but I've been a part of some organizations that, they do so many things really, really, really well. And then there's just this huge dramatic drop off. Like you mentioned, maybe there's not enough hands-on guys in the training room. There's not another head trainer. There's not the elaborate weight room and the resources, and it blows my mind. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the NFL teams they're so different. Where they spend the money, where they put their resources at, and they're expecting the greatest athletes in the world to perform week in and week out at the top, at their ability, but yet they still lack. Giving these resources to people. Not to mention, you get a significant injury like an ACL or what, which is very common. I would probably say there's probably 10 to maybe a dozen guys that probably suffer on an NFL team every year.
Yeah.
I would say probably 10, maybe a year that suffer from the same injury. And a lot of it's non-contact. It's running on the field, planting, stopping on a dime, planting. And sure, there's some freak stuff that happens, whether it's, maybe the surface isn't good or anything like that, but I think ACL and hamstring has got to be the biggest injuries that
100%.
that guys suffer in
hell,
NFL.
4 years ago, the Niners had 4 ACLs the opening game.
Yeah.
I mean, they were,
Well, I think the Ravens last year, every running back.
Yeah, literally all 3 of them gone.
In 1 week, and then
gone.
I think Jason Peters, their
Corner,
DB, I think 4 ACLs in maybe 1 day. So it is crazy, man. So it is really cool to see kind of how, like, early on, like, unbeknownst to you, you saw this, the vision came to you. Like, how do I bridge the gap between, this and that to help the athlete, not just to help the athlete, but help the understaffed, training
the organization
room.
Or the program.
Yeah. So you became this little middleman, really, right? And kind of created this special niche for you. So you're here in Nashville now. Your playing career is over. You've really just fully dived into the fitness realm, right? Or would you say, were you more of like the recovery, like rehab guy, or?
So initially I was, and I used to tell people all the time, like if we got on a consult call and they were coming off an injury, I'd tell them, I can take you from this state back to where you were, but greater.
Yeah.
Now, if you come to me as a healthy person, imagine what I can do.
Sure.
Right. So, it's a good selling point because I'll have people like Justin School. He had his ACL surgery out there, and he came back to Nashville to do all his rehab.
Yeah.
Which I would feel like is pretty unheard of for an NFL player who's still got another year on his contract.
Yeah.
Same thing with Tanya, and he came back Thanksgiving, came back Christmas. I mean, they're going into a deep playoff run. He's coming back to Nashville to rehab and train.
Yeah.
Well,
there's something about that because when I've only been on IR once, and it was for dislocated shoulder, torn labrum. I had that option. So when guys get hurt and they're placed on IR, they do have the option. They have the option to get second opinions on the injury, which most guys do. I mean, not to say that the team's ortho isn't great because they are. However, it's kind of just, hey, I'm going to go get another opinion on the significance, kind of the direction we take. And I saw it after, so I tore my shoulder in Jacksonville, and I went back to Indianapolis for my surgery and rehab. Yeah, there's like that risk of like, well, am I going to upset the team if I'm not going to rehab here with our doctors and trainers? But for me, I saw it out, the doctor, the surgeon that worked on my shoulder was not just a general ortho. He was a shoulder specialist. Worked on Andrew Luck's, or he wasn't the Andrew Luck doctor, but he was kind of fell in that pedigree of doctors, kind of the cutting edge, the PRP stem cell stuff, which is like, I'm like, all right, I'm down with that. It sounds good. I did my research on the ortho. He checked out well, had, other guys chime in on him. And because this is my, bread and butter, I need it just like a quarterback needs it, right? And so making that decision at the time, because I was going to be a free agent the next year, it was kind of like, what do I do? But for me, for the sake of my health and longevity, I went to the guy who I felt was best for me. And it all worked out. May have ruffled some feathers with the Jags organization and trainers and whatnot, but it is what it is. But a lot of guys, like you mentioned, like Tunyon, who just, had an ACL, you are given that opportunity to seek help. But testament to you, right? Where he trusted you and trusted the environment here. I think it's also really healthy for the athlete to kind of get out of the environment that they're currently in, because it's pretty depressing. First of all, you're on IR. You're not playing, obviously. You got to go through the surgery, and the road is long ahead. It's like 8 to 12 months of, grueling rehab just to get back on the field. But I think it's just really good to kind of remove yourself from the environment, because it's tough seeing the team doing their thing and you feeling like you're just completely not even a part of it.
I would imagine COVID probably, and I haven't even talked to him about this, but probably put another huge twist on this, because now you're having to do things completely by yourself. Which I think was probably part of the reason Justin, especially coming from California where Santa Clara was completely shut down.
Yeah, you can't do nothing.
I mean, that would have been very, very, very depressing. And then Rob being in Green Bay, it's
there's nothing there.
Like negative 10 degrees, and you're coming, that is a good point. It's funny that you bring up, going outside the organization with somebody like you or Rob or whoever that has a surgery. In the back of your mind, are you thinking, I need to get a second opinion, because while the team doctor he's great, he's the best in the city, likely, but he's also advised to do what's best for the team, right? So then you have to kind of go get that second or third opinion, huh?
Sure, and then but you also hear of the doctors, when somebody goes to so-and-so to get their knee replaced, or ACL, their shoulder, whatever it is, there's these special doctors that the elite athletes go to. And there's a reason for it. It's because they fix 1,000 knees a year. And I know when I was playing, you have there was elite specialists in Florida. There's actually one in Green Bay, oddly enough.
It does like foot, right?
It's like out of everywhere. They're Green Bay, right? And then I know, like, when Vinatieri, when I was playing with him and he had his hip fixed, his labrum fixed, he went to like the Olympic Training Center in Utah to go see their specialist, right? So there's the opportunities there, and I think as an athlete, we invest so much time and money into our bodies. Like, why not go get the best? Again, not to downplay how good the team orthos are, but that team ortho has an obligation to the team, right? So, and I think as the athlete, they have an obligation to themselves to go get the best of the best,
absolutely.
And so then I'm talking about the mindset again. It's nice to just kind of maybe get away from that environment, because it is depressing. But then I think what Robert did in particular, and I don't know, it sounds like he just came back periodically, right? So there's guys that go
and just go,
and you'll never see them again until they're cleared, or there's guys that will go back and forth to maybe see someone special like you, and then come throughout the week, to kind of be around the team and sit in the meetings and maybe go to the game, sit in the booth or whatnot. But it's kind of this little puppet show you got going on. You got to please kind of everyone in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's all about getting healthy and back on the field as soon as you can. So you're doing this. Where does we had Jeremy Hold on last week, and he shared his story, kind of how he navigated through football and the training, his mindset, and kind of, I think, the big aha picture that he had fairly early on when he felt like football wasn't going to be the career path he took. He had that passion for like helping others and the training aspect, because he's like, bro, I'm a gym rat. I'm always in the gym. This is, I love it. Where did it start to click in for you? Where like, not only am I gonna like, Nashville's the spot.
Yep.
But where did you and Jeremy kind of cross paths, and kind of how did that relationship start with you guys?
So early on, one of my first NFL clients, Eric Decker.
Okay.
And I was training over at Empower, and we just didn't have a ton of space. So I started doing some research around, and Trent Taylor was training with me. Okay. And Trent had just got back here. He's from Louisiana, but moved to Nashville. Like, Trent, where do you do your speed work? Yeah. He's like, I go over to this guy, Jeremy. I said, do you mind if I come over and just observe? Because at first I didn't know what he was all about. I just wanted to put eyes on who these guys are training with. And I walked in, and Lipscomb then wasn't quite what it is now. This is 2016, but the environment was pretty special, even almost 6 years ago. Yeah. And I said, yeah, this is solid. It's a unique question whenever this comes up, because I am prideful. I mean, I've done combine training. Yeah. I've worked with athletes of all scopes, but I have the ability to take a step back when it comes to Jeremy. Yeah. Because I recognize how good he is at what he does. Yeah. And I have people, they'll ask me on a show, how can you let somebody handle your speed work? Yeah. I said, because I'm not as good as him. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's humbling for people to hear and humbling for me to say, but he's really, really good. Yeah. So at that point, I just introduced myself, and I told him, I was like, hey, listen, any guy that I have, if they're willing, unless it's just basic starts, basic change of direction, if they need work, like, can I just holler at you? Sure. He said, absolutely. So we just started growing that way. Mm-hmm. George came in, I introduced George to him. Yeah. That relationship obviously took off on both angles. And there was a time where we were trying to work together, like trying to make it a thing. Yeah. Mostly came back to my former employer, which was Elite, sponsors that building that Jeremy trains out of. Yeah. And they tried to sue me, so I wasn't. Okay. I'm not allowed to train there. Yeah, yeah. I pop in there once, maybe twice a year at most, for like one arm farm for a big film session. But I normally get a phone call. Jeremy will call me like, hey, you know, they're calling, like, wanting to make sure you're not here. I'm like, yeah, you're good. Okay. I know how it is. Okay. So we knew then that us as an entity wasn't going to work. Yeah. But we had enough mutual respect for each other, even from like scheduling standpoint. Like, I'll call him, he'll call me. We got guys at this time. One time you've seen them, and it really just blends so well. Yeah. People will come here from the Seahawks or from the Bengals or the Pats, and they're like, how is this going to work? And I'm like, give me 6 hours, let me talk to Jeremy, and we'll figure out who's got who when, and we're going to make sure that this whole process runs as smoothly as possible. Sure. So for people listening who's not familiar with the Jeremy Holt, so Jeremy's also an elite trainer here in Nashville, and Josh and him have kind of created this really unique culture and atmosphere, like two different entities, but just like literally working together. And he mentions, George Kittle and Trent Taylor. A lot of the NFL tight ends come through here because they have Tight End U that George started up. You have Lipscomb, that's just a private high school academy that Trent Dilfer's the head coach of. Literally has like rolled the red carpet out for us. I want NFL guys here. My young guys can see what it takes. And it's not even that. It's just, you got Michael Chandler, MMA. You got some of the elite CrossFitters in the world there. And you have, like, I hate to say average Joes, but you have the normal mom and dads that come in there every single day at Lipscomb that are dogs. Yeah. Like, they are getting after it. And so Jeremy and Josh have managed to kind of create this community. And I think now, like, would you say, how many years has this gone on now? Like, this will be year 6. Year six of both of us having a working together relationship. Yeah. So Jeremy, all on field, speed, agility, speed, and footwork, and you're kind of just the just weight room strength. I mean, I'll condition guys, but when it comes to the field, I really do. I just take a step back. Yeah. Some of the O linemen, D linemen, I'll do some stuff with them. Sure. Kind of falls back into my realm, but. You see the things that George or Hawkinson or Trent Taylor does to somebody on the field. I can't replicate that. All that stuff comes from Jeremy's brain. Sure. And they love him, right? So we're not the same as far as energy inside of our environments either. Yeah. So I think that's also a good thing. Like, they can go to him, and however you want to say it, they'll go vibe with him, right? Yeah. But when they come to me, I'm going to coach, and I'm going to be a little bit louder. My energy is going to be a little bit different. Yeah. So they know what they're getting from both of us, right? I think the demeanor is a little bit different for sure, because I see Jeremy quite a bit. Yep. He's more of, the charismatic, maybe laid back. he's gonna laugh, he's gonna smile,
yeah,
he's
and I
can
see how you like you're more of like, hey, like shut up and work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of more of my mentality too.
Uh-huh.
Like if I have an hour, I'm gonna do everything I can within that hour to get the best out of that workout. And I can kind of see how like two different personalities, but like getting the best out of every individual that comes through their session at that given moment, which I think that's how it's working, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You guys have that chemistry together, and it's just getting better and better every year. I mean, would you say just not only are the same guys coming and really like now Kittle lives here full time, Trent Taylor's here full time, these guys, you know, Darren Bates is here full time. You got Will Compton coming in, you know, like guys like that who have literally just like, hey, this is going to be my spot for the off season. Has it grown exponentially to where it's maybe getting a little out of hand, or is it kind of just trending in the right direction to where it's manageable and you and Jeremy feel like you guys can still give your all to these guys?
So that's a really good question, because I remember back in 2016 it was George, Trent, QP, Quinn Patton, and Decker. Right? So there was 4. If I count how many people outside of tight end U that I touched that came into my gym, it was 23 this year.
Okay.
Full time, I was right around 15 all off season.
Yeah.
So this was the first year that I had to run 3 groups.
Okay.
Right. Used to be it was just 1.
Yeah.
And then we ran a second, but you know, on Fridays we'd blend everybody together. We'd all get swole. But now it's 2 running into 3 groups, right? Because you want to keep quality as good as we can.
Yeah.
We're growing.
Yeah.
We're growing year after year.
Yeah.
Tight end U is a big part of that.
Yeah.
We don't. You know, we volunteer our time for that, but what a great opportunity to showcase what we can do for you.
Sure, yeah.
Because this year I had 4 guys come back. Last year I had 2 guys come back. So that's an opportunity for me to gain bodies, right? Every year, Jeremy and I, probably our biggest obstacle is these high performing, you know, general population people, because they fill up our schedule all year long.
Yeah.
And then we have that weird kind of conversation, like, hey, I know you've been here.
Where do I shove these people?
You've been here for the past 8 months, right?
Yeah.
You know, if I look at my Stripe account, you've paid me thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But understand that I've got 6 NFL athletes that need this time.
Yeah.
And then I've got 6 right out, and so on and so forth. Where it's gotten a little bit easier, I think, on my front is I've picked up a lot of NFL wives.
Okay.
So a lot of those women will come in during the time that their husband would train, and they understand, you know, come the off season, they have to be a little bit more flexible with me.
Okay.
Which used to be early on, having that conversation was something that I dreaded. Right? Because you know, Miss Tammy and Miss Sue, they're nice people, and they pay real American dollars too.
Yeah.
But they don't grow the brand like these other people do.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest obstacle that I think both of us will have moving forward is what do we do next year when it's 25 athletes apiece?
Yeah.
And then when it gets to 30, right?
Yeah.
It's a good problem to have.
It is, yeah.
But you know, it's definitely something that I think about frequently.
Yeah. So as a trainer, like there's not 2 or 3 Josh. There's not 2 or 3 Jay Holtz.
Yep.
When you get to that point, like you said, it's a good problem to have. However, I know, you know, just from naturally being around the setting, like I know that it's hard to find somebody that you can, you know, maybe
delegate
and throw off, you know, a few clients when you just get overwhelmed. Have you managed to find anybody else that can help you, you know, with some of the time management, and so you're not spreading yourself too thin to where you feel like you can give your full energy to every single client that walks through the door? Or has that been something where you just kind of maybe right now just capping it off?
Right now I'm just capping. I've brought in help on like my back end.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of stuff online too. That's a big part of my business.
Yeah.
So I've delegated that way.
Yeah.
But when it comes to in person, the relationship that I build with these people is why they come back.
Sure.
Right. So I speak on a connection-based coaching model.
Yeah. And
if you can't connect with somebody, they're not coming back to you.
Okay.
Because the next person down in Atlanta or wherever, J Todd, whoever it is, can be 5 miles down the street.
Yeah.
And they choose who they go to, not because of the skill set they have, because we're all equally as skilled. There's a lot of really, really good coaches in this city.
Yeah.
But the people that come to me, or the people that come to Justin, or the people that come to Jeremy, they come because they connected with that person.
Yeah.
And if you aren't able to give that person the ability to connect with you, they might feel like they're getting tossed off to the side.
Yeah.
Chances are they're walking out the door and they're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line when it comes to that, and I just love coaching.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I were to scale with more individuals and bring in some other coaches, I would make more money.
Yeah.
But at this point in my career, I'm just so invested in these athletes. I don't give a shit about any of that.
Yeah.
Like I want to continue to pour into my athletes, to pour into my people, right? Like I've had people lose 100+ pounds.
Yeah.
That's super satisfying too, right? Like you're changing lives, helping athletes perform better, make more money, you know, all that stuff. But when it comes to general population, you have people coming off a knee replacement and they couldn't walk and now they're able to do a box jump, or somebody that lost 120 pounds and they're now off their insulin medicine. They all like kind of fill a different, not a void, but they fill my cup in a different way, right?
Yeah.
I would lie if I said that I only want to train athletes.
Yeah.
I really enjoy training them, right?
Yeah.
Like this time of year, I'm like riding on a high, right?
Yeah.
My energy's higher, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Also sleeping less, all those kinds of things too. But those other people, they feel it differently.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I tell young coaches. They're like, man, I see you train all these athletes. How do I get there? I said, well, first off, you got to get really freaking good at training 12-year-old kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't ignore them. Get really good at training Miss Sue. Right.
Yeah.
She has problems that you're going to have to figure out, brainstorm how to make them better.
Yeah.
The athletes will come. Like that's going to come based upon your charisma, your background, like how you're able to communicate with people, a little bit of your swag, like whatever it is. Right. Training athletes isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Training general population really isn't for everybody either. Like there's former athletes that they just got too much energy, they yell too much, they're too damn big looking, right? And they're intimidating to the regular person. So I tell people, you know, who you train is going to find you more so than you are going to find that.
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, something that I always like to talk about on shows, is just the ability to go from training George and Rob and whoever right to, you know, 250-year-old women.
Yeah.
Right. That challenges me and it makes me a better coach every day.
Yeah. So speaking on that, like you've talked about kind of the community and the culture and just the mindset that you guys have. And I think it's really important because I think early on in my career, like I was always, you know, lured in by the glitz and glam of a facility rather than, you know, the coach itself, the programming. And I learned a long time ago, like, you know, you walk into, you know, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but you walk into D1 and they have everything there for you, you know, and then you go to your box, right? It's just the weights are weights. Yeah. The space is the space, and we're going to utilize what we have, and we're going to make best of it, right? But it comes down to your energy, your design, your programming that really elevates these guys. And I think a lot of young athletes, and this is probably the reason why, you know, the recruiting process in college is so crazy, right? Is because who wouldn't want to go to Oregon? Yeah. Because they have the best of the best whenever you want it.
50 pairs of shoes.
Absolutely, right? Who wouldn't want that? But that doesn't mean it's the best place. They just have, you know, a lot of resources. You know, and it's the same with training. Like when you're seeking a trainer or a gym, it's like don't be just enamored by the nice machines. You know, like, you know, the weights don't change. 45 pounds, 45 pounds, no matter what. You know, and it really comes down to who's running the program, right? And so you and J-Hole have really, like, not, you have nice facilities, but, you know, I think what you guys offer is just, it's the mindset that you guys have in the programming, which helps elevate everyone. It's not just the athletes. And to your point, athletes are easy to train. Yeah. They're the ones that are motivated and encouraged to get up every single day. Coachable, and you don't need to work on footwork all the time or how to walk properly or how to sit in and out of a chair. You know, how to activate glutes and hamstring, all kinds of stuff. But to your point, like, you get filled in different ways by, you know, just every single different client you have. And it is pretty rewarding to see somebody literally change their life by losing 100 pounds, getting off the insulin, or just being able to feel like they can function as a normal human being with a, you know, bad hip
knee,
or bad knee.
I mean, there's just so many. I have so many success stories. A recent one, and I'm not going to say his name, but he was a remote client of mine, and I run a men's group. Every 6 months, I'll take on 10 guys, and I'll implement a training program. We'll get on weekly calls. We'll get on a group call together, individual calls, nutrition, all the stuff. And he dropped out last year, and I was pretty disappointed. We were about 4 months in, and this would be about the time that we'd start another one. We're about 8 months out, and he hit me up. He's like, hey man, this has been on my mind for a long time. I was bad off on drugs, all this stuff. I hid all this stuff from you, but I just need you to know that being with you got me over that. He said,
Yeah.
I've been drug free for 6 months.
Yeah.
I didn't have the money to pay you anymore, and I didn't have the heart to tell you.
Yeah.
But you did get me through that point.
Wow.
This is a guy in Fresno, California.
Wow.
Never met him in person.
Yeah.
Right. So fitness as a whole, like the vessel that fitness provides for people and for me is huge.
Yeah. No, that's incredible, man. And again, testament to just the person you are. And it is. You go back to the trainer. Like me and Justin Todd have an incredible relationship.
Yep.
I go to him for when I'm excited to see him. When I'm having a rough day, I don't want to train. But as soon as I walk in the door, he brings that energy that I need. And again, it's not about the weights. It's just about the people that you're around that just help elevate your game every single time. You push each other. And that's what the culture and community that you guys have built. And so we just entered into training camp time, right? Again, there's a few, as a trainer in the NFL who has an NFL client base, you kind of have the 3 months in the off season, like maybe February, April.
Then OTAs, then you get like this last like solid grind month.
Then you have like 5 weeks in the summer, most of July, and then you just kind of hit this like abrupt stop. How is it I know you have the Sues and the Marys that come every single day.
Yep.
But how is it like mentally for you? Like you said, you get charged up. Hey, the boys are back in town. These 5 weeks are going to roll. And then, I mean, is there kind of, you have that dopamine hit, like where you're just ready to rock? But is there, when everyone leaves and report to camp and hey, where's everybody at?
Yeah.
Like how does that feel for you as a trainer?
It's fun. I don't think anybody's ever asked me this question. I was really close to posting it yesterday. Might have been this morning, like an Instagram story.
Yeah.
And I just took like a pano one day, and I think we had like 12 or 13 guys in there.
Yeah.
And my thought was, I'm missing it already.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm missing that a little bit. Like I would be lying
it's the brotherhood. It's
if
the
I didn't say
man.
like I had some of my ladies like Lauren Tannehill and all the NFL wives came in. They came in after my last group, and I was dapping everybody up, hugging them. Good luck, I love you, all that stuff. She's like, oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it is a little bit, right? Because these guys have been with me around 16 weeks, right? And Sundays are hard. I actually talked about this last week on a separate interview. Sundays are much harder than they used to be. I don't play fantasy football. I don't do any of that stuff because not only am I so emotionally invested in these guys, but they're a little bit of a representation of what I do. All every time you put together a program, you put together an off-season protocol, you don't really see the reap of what you sow until you actually see it on the field. Right. So I can see people getting stronger. I can see people getting faster. But at the end of the day, I want them to perform better.
Is it
right?
translating?
Yes. And that's something you don't know. Like people are lying to you if they say they know this is going to work. Because you do it, and then they go play the sport that you're preparing them for. So every time I turn a game on Sundays, I'm like, all right, let's see if he has the ability to stick that foot. Let's see how explosive he is out of that step. And I'm over here analyzing, and my wife or my friends, whoever I'm with, they're like, can you just watch the game? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying.
But you're watching the game through a different lens.
Yes, a completely different lens. Like I'm over here looking at the left tackle when Justin's in, or I'm looking at the right guard when I'm watching, which now Shaq's not with the Pats anymore. Who's it with the Bucks?
Okay.
And like I'm watching him, right? Like I'm watching to see how well he's moving, and people are like, "Did you see that?" I'm like, "I saw Shaq pancake that guy. Did you see that?" So football's different now.
And that's cool. That's actually a cool perspective to have because now you're, like you said, you're invested into these players kind of emotionally because they're your friends. It's the product that you've helped kind of create, good or bad though.
It could be
good or bad. Some guys obviously have injuries that occur that are are fluke, and it's unfortunate to kind of see somebody put in all that work and then maybe week one or training camp, and it happens every single year, unfortunately, that boom, something happens that puts them on IR, the shelf for the whole year, and then like ahead, hey, all right, now the long road ahead is you've been there, and you've helped these guys get back on their feet. So I can understand how like it just like. Not you just watch it through a different lens, but it's like a little bit. Sundays are a little bit different nowadays, right? So that's pretty cool, man.
They are this time, and kind of getting back to your original question. This time of year, this week is my slowest week, and I still have some guys here. Right? Like DB's still here, Stalker's still here.
Or like free agents, right?
Yeah, free agents, and it was funny. I asked Luke, who's going into year 12.
Yeah.
I dapped him. I'm like, hey man, I hope you get the phone call this week. He said, no, I'm not ready yet.
Too early.
Like I'm not ready yet. Like let the people kind of fizzle through and go through training camp. And we've adjusted our protocol a little bit. They're 3 days with me now, 4 days with Jeremy because they want to be able to handle the volume on the field.
Exactly.
And you know, it's just different talking to somebody like that.
Yeah.
So he's still kind of filling that glass a little bit for me.
Oh, for sure.
But then I got builders, I got architects, I got all these different people that have been chomping at the bit to get with me for a second or a third or a fourth day.
Yeah.
So now I can pour into them. I can pour into somebody who wants to you know, go into a fat loss phase or you know, wants to hit a 300-pound bench for the first time in their life, right? So I transition, you know, my energy will transition into these people.
Yeah.
Normally takes me a couple weeks, right? But I don't prioritize people based upon the effort that I give them. It just takes me a minute to change my energy that I'm going to present on a day-to-day basis.
That's cool, man. I want to touch back on your ACL because you played a year, you know, on a torn ACL. Mm-hmm. And recently, Odell Beckham Jr. came out and said he played the back half of last year with a torn ACL. And in the Super Bowl, everyone saw, I don't know if he tore it completely or he just had that one little movement where it just jolted him and like he knew that he was done. I mean, what's your take on performing with literally no ACL? Like, how legitimate is it for him to maybe make that claim at his position in particular? Because everything is on a dime.
Especially the way the way that he plays. So the closest Hines Ward was either born with it or it was torn early in his career and he never got it repaired.
Okay, all right.
So, you know, somebody like Odell that had an acute, and you know, a tear is a grade 1 sprain. Yeah. Grade 2, grade 3 is like a complete tear. Yeah. Right. So it's very capable possible that he could have had a grade 2. Yeah. It could have been sliced down the side, not detached completely. Okay. And he was rolling, and then that little translation cut it completely. But I don't have an ACL in this knee. Okay. I've had it done 3 times. It went again. I said, you're not going back in. Yeah. Right. The last time was about 6 months before my 3-year-old daughter was born. Yeah. I said, I can't be, you know, not able to do everything that I want to do with this. So I went in, I just got it scoped. They cleaned it out, fixed the meniscus, all that stuff. And I can do a lot of stuff. Yeah. I put a lot of effort and, you know, special attention into this knee. Yeah. And I'll probably have a replacement in the next, you know, 10 or 15 years because of it. Yeah. But there's not much that I can do. I hoop. I run with the guys. Yeah. I'm not really, really sticking it in the ground very often, but every now and then I have to. Yeah. And it holds up okay. Yeah. So it probably is not completely out of the realm that he played with it that way. Yeah. I'm trying to remember if he was braced up, all those things.
See, I don't remember him being, and
I don't think so either.
I don't recall seeing. I think it's when you see a receiver in particular wearing a brace, it's a little like glaring. Like, whoa, what's he doing with the brace on? And for him to, because I watched a few games like later in the year when they were making their run, it seemed like he was running routes like he would normally.
Yeah, he was just getting fired
up.
Really.
So to hear them say that was like, whoa, like there's no way. But I guess it's possible, right?
You know? And I think it's the medical terminology that was used. Yeah. Right? Like somebody could have said, you know, your ACL was torn, but his ACL wasn't like slap torn. Yeah. Right? He just, in my opinion, to play the way he does and do the things the way that he does them, one wasn't completely torn, and 2, he wouldn't have had that reaction in the Super Bowl. Yeah. Right? So if it were already completely torn, either something else tore at that time, or that was the straw that completely tore. Sure. But either way, all the ACLs that he's had to still come back and start putting together the year that he was having on the back end, it's pretty impressive.
Oh, for sure.
Most people going into number 3, they're on the pine somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But I want to talk about you. Like you've, you know, when I look at a trainer, you know, and an elite trainer at that, it's like not only do you got to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. Yeah. Right. And I look at you, I look at Jeremy Holt, look at Justin Todd, I look at guys that I've trained with, and like, the reason why I love you guys is because not only are you at like mentally at the top of your game with like programming, just the science behind things, always evolving as a coach, learning. I mean, because it's always evolving. There's new studies, there's new techniques, there's new this, that, and the other. But you guys walk the walk. You lift with the boys. Yeah. You move with the boys. And I think that is what is incredibly, I think it's a little bit unique, right? I mean, because you've managed to shred up this year, and we'll talk about kind of how you did that. But you're getting stronger with the guys. Yeah. You train with them. Like, I love when Justin jumps in a session with me because now we push each other. It's like, dude, that's my trainer. Yeah. Like, he's doing everything he preaches. and when he's doing footwork and like, hey, I need to decelerate on this leg, plan off that leg, he's doing the movement. So like in his brain, he's like, he can teach me how to do it better. And I think that's just so cool that you guys do. So talk about like, do you get fulfilled by like just like, hey, I'm not just coaching these guys, but hey, I'm gonna push some iron with these guys too. Yeah. I'm gonna compete. Do these guys just push you to like a whole new level?
So one of my favorite stories on this topic was we talked about Justin School being here like all year. He originally came to me 3 years ago now, and my number one intention for him was getting him stronger. He was just way behind the bell curve. He's a tall offensive lineman, long limbs, couldn't really bend well. Yeah, had my work cut out for me, right? And bench press is my thing, right? Like we're shorter arms, right? Like, bench is something I've always been good at. Yeah. And I'll never forget, we were, I don't know, it was probably February. The guys were getting closer to being back here, and he'd been here like 7 months. Yeah. We were doing dumbbell bench press. Yeah. And I had 125s, and it was our last set. I'm like, all right, you go first, max reps. Yeah. And he did, and I wasn't paying attention. I was like, how many did you get? He said, don't worry about it. I said, shit. Okay. Yeah. So then I went and I hit 7. Okay. And I was feeling good because I don't know if I'd ever seen him do it more than 4 or 5. Yeah. And I looked over at the other guy training with us, and he said he did 11. Okay. I said, all right, I'm done. Like, you got me. Yeah. Like, you have surpassed me, and since that point, I haven't been able to catch him. Yeah. Right? And even now, like, I'll try to clean with Luke Stalker. Yeah. And I can keep up to a degree, and then he pulls away. But it pushes me because he didn't go to OTA, so we had like a 1 month block in the middle where we went through like a true like power clean phase. Yeah. Right. And we both got up over 300 pounds. Yeah. We were both slinging some iron. It had been 2 years since I cleaned 300 pounds. Yeah. Without him, I wouldn't have done that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it is some of my favorite time of year, and it kind of comes back to that shredding you were talking about. It's easy. It was easier for me to attempt that this time of year. Yeah.
So how much weight have you lost? Or how has your body composition changed probably in the past? Would you say, was it 12 months, 16 months?
So we'll call it probably 6 months.
Okay, 6. So not a lot of people don't realize like 6 months is not like, I think people within like fitness goals, like 6 months to them is like 3 years. Yeah. It's like literally like 6 months goes by in a flash. Yes. But it's also not a lot of time to hit certain marks that people think they can get to, whether it's losing 50 pounds or 5% body fat. Like these things take time. Yep. Depending on where especially if you're already like kind of in decent shape too, it's even harder. Yeah. So talk about kind of your journey too, like, because I was watching an Instagram video one day. I'm like, you had your shirt off. I'm like, Cuthbert is shredded. I think you were doing like, I don't know, I think you were doing cleans.
Cleans, probably, yeah. And I got a lot of response on that one.
Your abs were popping. I'm like, what did he do? This is not the same Josh Cuthbert that I saw 6 months ago or a year ago. So what did you modify kind of this season, and kind of what has been your goal?
It sounds super simple, but I moved more. Yeah. I didn't do an ounce of cardio until the last 6 weeks of it. Okay. Which blows people away. They're like, no way. I know you were hitting the elliptical. I'm like, no, I didn't. Even at that point, I never ran more than 2 miles consecutively. Yeah. I upped my protein. Yeah. And then really I just got more serious about what I was doing, right? Yeah. Wednesday beer, Wednesday bourbon didn't happen. Yeah. I trained 5 days a week. Yeah. I trained pretty hard all off season with Justin. Yeah. Tried to, mix it in as the groups got bigger, continued mixing it up with the guys. And probably the biggest thing was this time of year, in years past, I would pour so much into them that sometimes it would take away from my own physical fitness. Yeah. And I made a conscious effort to make sure that didn't happen this year. Yeah. I was goal oriented towards what I wanted to do, and just because I was training more and all that stuff, I wasn't going to allow that to get in the way. Yeah. And then I really just took an emphasis on strength, because I knew if I lost weight just for the sake of losing weight, and I didn't try to maintain all the muscle that that honestly, so I say 6 months, but spent a year trying to build before that, that what came to surface once I started losing fat wouldn't look like what I wanted it to. Yeah. So there were some lifts that I damn near PR'd, even though I'm 20 pounds down. Yeah. Right.
Which is crazy, right? People think it's the opposite. Yeah. And like, that's why it's all these young kids, it's bulking season, bulking. They're eating everything they can find. Yep. And it's like, dude, like I remember in high school, I was in high school, graduated in 2003. It was all about as much protein shakes you can take in. Didn't matter what ingredients was in it. It was just like bulk. And which we thought equated to strength. And that's complete. I mean, some of it's true.
A little bit, yeah.
But you can still walk around at 230 and lift with somebody that's 350.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, there's a lot of guys that do that. And to your point, I think that's the misconstrued message that's being sent out to young athletes. It's like, eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and try to get the calories in, try to get the protein in because it's going to make you stronger. Well, in reality, it's, your nutrition is very, very important, but it's the work you put in the weight room that's going to get you to where you want to be. And you don't have to gain 50 pounds to have a 300-pound bench.
No, not even close.
No, not even close.
Especially for these young guys, like your newbie gains are so important.
Yeah.
But during that time in which your central nervous system is so opening and just ready to grow, you got to feed it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't just, half-ass the weight room 2 or 3 times a week, go home and have 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, be like, oh, I'm bulking.
Yeah.
No, spend the time, get really, really good at the compound lifts. Like you're not going to grow any more than you are up until you're about 20 years old on your bench, squat, clean, deadlift.
Yeah.
Like that is the time in which you can go from 0 to, 350, 400, 500 on all of those things, right? Because your body is just so accepting.
Yeah.
But I also tell people that if you don't take that time, right? Like I've worked with long snappers that weren't really big in the weight room early on in their career. Now they're trying to play catch up, right?
Yeah.
And now they're 6, 8, 10 years into lifting, right? And they're kind of seasoned lifters.
Yeah.
They don't have the ability to go back and accept those newbie gains like they could have.
Yeah.
And the same thing for fat loss. It doesn't have to be this drastic, drop your calories down to 1,500 calories and do all this cardio. I mean, I was eating 250 carbs a day when I was in my deficit.
Yeah.
People were like, wait, you're still eating carbs? I'm like, yeah, I had rice and potatoes with every single meal.
Yeah.
Right. But those things also fuel me to be able to hit the weight room the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what people, they misunderstand that one, carbs are fuel for you to perform and to train the way that you need to in order to have the muscle that's necessary to burn fat and to keep it off.
Yeah. And I think it was cool. How old are you?
32.
So you're 32. I just turned 37. And I'm in better shape now than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not only, like, I may not be as strong at certain things that I was once, because in college, I was hang cleaning like 315, like for reps and like just doing crazy stuff like that. But I feel so much better now. I feel more athletic.
Yep.
And yeah, in my career, when I look at my career, I'm a free agent now, but going on year 11, there was a point in time, and I don't know where this changed or what made me change it, but I almost got away from like being strong. There was like, I want to be flexible.
You want to be more
I want to be
mobile.
Yeah. I don't want to hurt my back, back squatting 500 pounds. And then I got away from that, and it's just like, one day it just clicked to me. It's like, why have I gotten away?
Why did I got you there?
Yeah,
right?
From the foundation of being just being strong in the mindset, like, because strong wins. It does.
Yeah, strong's never wrong.
And you're gonna get faster because of it. You're gonna get more. There's some other aspects that help you be more agile, all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, like the past 5 or 6 years, it's like, I want to be the best athlete that I could be possible. And that in the weight room, on the field, at my craft. And it's like, I'm kind of like just kicking myself. Why couldn't I have had that mentality, back then to put in that work? Because now it's like, now I'm older, a little bit wiser, but I'm like, man, like I feel better now at 37 than I did at 27.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to like the structure and the programming and just dedicating yourself to just kind of having that approach every offseason. Like offseason for me is fun. I love it.
Yep.
I think a lot of guys, if you ask them, say, what's better, the season or the offseason? Well, the season has its perks because you're playing the game you love. But there's a lot of stress.
Yep.
There is obviously the wear and tear on the body. And, we're always under that microscope every single day at performing at a high level. But the off season's like, all right, strip me down.
Yep.
Make me better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys just look forward to like coming back to Nashville, coming back to you, coming back to a trainer. And I love it. And, I think it's just that, I don't know, whatever it is, I think when yoga got big 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like there's good in that. But a lot of people put everything into that and they stayed away from the weight room. And I think now the weight room's coming back like, hey, like you gotta be strong. Strong wins.
And we know so much more about like the actual lengthening of the muscle fibers. And Justin, obviously I have an immense amount of respect for him. But I mean, I've seen you guys, you go partials, you go full, you'll pause in the center, right? Like your hamstrings aren't getting more flexible by touching your toes. Your hamstrings are getting more flexible by doing heavy ass RDLs.
Yeah.
Right? Doing good mornings, doing all the things that we know, like you're preparing that tissue for battle.
Yeah.
Yoga doesn't prepare the tissue for battle.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate yoga. I appreciate Pilates. Everything has a purpose.
Sure.
Right? But like what you were saying is about a decade ago, or maybe a little bit less, it almost took over, and it was a scary time.
Yeah.
And if you look back, the correlation was injuries were also up.
Yeah.
Right? People, and less, not that more ligament issues or any of that stuff, but soft tissue injuries were higher than they've ever been.
Yeah.
People were more flexible, but they didn't have the stability to go with that flexibility.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous game to have.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're finally coming back, and I hate this, I hate to say it, but CrossFit has really put a big emphasis on training, and training really freaking hard.
Yeah.
Right. They run people into the ground, they get people hurt, but they've taken the idea of training and training to failure and training hard, and they brought it back to life, honestly, because it was dead.
Yeah.
It really was. It was dead.
Yeah.
You had more hit classes and Orange Theories popping up everywhere, and people forgot what it felt like to actually struggle under load.
Yeah.
And CrossFit brought that back, and now you're starting to see places pop up, people pop up like me and Jeremy that still will condition people and will barbell condition people, but we do it in a manner that's one that's safer and more structured than what a lot of these boxes are running currently. But that's good for them for at least bringing awareness to training hard all over again.
Well, it's the merit of it, right? Yeah. It's like there's obviously some dangerous movements that's not made for everybody. Not everyone can deadlift or power clean or snatch or anything like that. So there's just method behind the madness, right? But going back to the root of it's like strong. Let's be strong. And like you said too, running someone into the ground. Yeah. There's nothing more rewarding than just getting your butt absolutely whooped in the gym. Yep. Because it's either in the gym or out on the field. Out there. Yeah. And I'd rather have it in the gym. So that's really, really cool that you mentioned that. So my brand is Stay Ready. Yep. My mentality kind of shifted when I became that free agent, and it was like, hey, stay ready for the opportunity, man. Well, it's evolved. It's evolved, to more faith-based, just being ready to serve at any moment. Mentor young guys, obviously stay ready for an opportunity with football. But it's just kind of the daily mindset for me. And when you think of stay ready, and you talk about rehab, when you talk about prehab and helping somebody recover from their injury, getting them back on the field, when you hear stay ready, I mean, there's some cliche meanings to it, but when you hear it from a coaching standpoint, a mentor standpoint, and a training standpoint, what does it kind of bring to mind for you?
For me, it's what you do off the field and when you're not with me. Yeah. Right. So what's your morning routine look like? Yeah. Because that's going to ready you for the entire day. Yeah. Right. What's your evening routine look like? Yeah. Are you doing the things necessary to make sure that you get the adequate sleep to recover, to be ready for the next day? Yeah. What's your nutrition look like? Yeah. All the things that are non-controllables by me, that is how you as the athlete stay ready to perform at the top of your game. Sure. And it's something that, when we sit down, you come to me, hey Josh, here's what I felt like I lacked this year. Here's what I want to do. What can I do to get there? All right, here's XYZ that we're going to do in the morning. Yeah. Here's a template of how we should be eating. Yeah. Here's what you need to do in the evening time so that you are ready to go day in and day out. Yeah. Because if you're not prepared for the day, you're already a step behind. Yeah. Right? How can you stay ready, be ready if you didn't wake up ready? Yeah. Right? Yeah. You woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you're not ready. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I think in short, that's probably how I would categorize that. That's cool, man. I appreciate you that. Also, one thing, so Justin Todd wanted me to ask Jeremy, because obviously he looks up to you guys. You guys have all sort of kind of helped each other along the way. Yep. You guys are all elevating in your own little realms here in Nashville, and it's really, really cool. Because I said this little community and fraternity here in Nashville is really small. Yeah. And we cross paths some way, that whether it's at Lipscomb or at your gym or you coming over to get fit every now and then. But Justin's going into a new phase of his career and his life, being married, expecting their first child. Yep. You're married with kids. Yep. His question for Jeremy was like, dude, how do you he's up at 3 a.m. every morning. He doesn't get home to maybe 8 p.m. at night. How do you not only pour into your clients, into these NFL guys getting ready for season, but then when a long day comes to an end at work, how do you pour back into your family? Like, what is some advice that you can have for Justin, who's going into this new chapter as a trainer?
but also people who are listening to be able to like give their all when they get home too.
You got to be able to turn it off.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that, you know, I've struggled with at times.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm like yourself. I do a bunch of other things, some real estate stuff here, some Airbnb stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff bleeds over from training into that. But you got to make sure that, you know, we had to cancel a couple weeks ago because, you know, I had to get to my daughter's dance.
Yeah.
Right. You got to make sure that you make time for the things that are truly the most important.
Sure.
Right. You know, picking your kids up from school, like having set boundaries. Right. So I don't take my kids to school except for Fridays.
Okay.
I don't take any clients on Friday morning before 8 o'clock because I'm going to make sure that I take them to school.
Yeah.
4 days a week, I make sure I pick them up from school.
Okay.
Right. So they may not see me for breakfast 4 days a week.
Yeah.
But they're going to see me at least once, and they're going to know Daddy's going to take them to school.
Yeah.
And they know that Daddy's going to pick them up, and he's going to have muffins, or he's going to have Cheez-Its, or whatever it is. Yeah. At least 4 days a week, he's going to be there, and you know, my little girl's going to come running, you know, Daddy, Daddy, and then I'll pick up my son who's not quite walking yet, but he's going to crawl as fast as he can, and his favorite thing is to reach up and grab my hat and put it on. So just making sure that you make time for those things because you know, looking back, I haven't missed much. Yeah. But I would regret it if I did.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things as an athlete, I know, you know, practices are long, training camps long, the season's long, games are long. And I just talked about this too on a post is you know, one of the hardest things to do as, you know, professional athlete, train yourself who's got a big client base. You literally have to give your all to each individual session.
Yep.
And by the end of the day, you're worn out mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. And as an athlete, maybe we have a rough practice, a bad game, we lose. It's like, how can you turn it off? And how can you go be daddy and husband when you get home? And it's a hard thing to navigate through. It's a hard thing to really just take the time out to like kind of remind yourself, hey, like the game's over, practice is over, training's over. When I get home, you know, I need to pour out and give that same energy to my family who deserves it more than anyone. And Jeremy mentioned, like he said, hey, I'm harping on my clients every single day, like, hey, 2 more reps, 2 more reps, 2 more reps, 2 more sprints. When he gets home, puts the car in park in the driveway, he has to remind himself, all right, I got 2 more hours. I can give 2 more hours, you know, because it's been a long day. Kids are going to go to bed in 2 hours. Those next 2 hours are probably the most important hours I spend this today. And I think it's just incredible to hear you guys manage, like you have a successful business, but then just being successful leaders at home, which is really, really important because I think that gets overshadowed. And I'm guilty of all the time with Bree and my daughter. It's like this industry that we're in with football and professional sports, selfishly, it takes a lot of time away from the family because training is important. You know, training camp is important. Traveling and rehab and the season is important. And sometimes the family may feel as if they're put on the back burner because our sport puts a precedent on our livelihood and we have to perform day in, day out. So hats off to our spouses and kids at home for putting up with what daddy does.
That's right.
But thanks for sharing your story, man. I really appreciate it, man. And where do you see, you guys have grown so much. I mean, what is the vision you have for this community and the culture that you've set here in the next 5-10 years? What do you want to see out of this, man?
So I've put a lot of thought into that, and this will be the first time that I've actually answered that kind of openly. I want to continue to grow as myself. Right. I don't have any immediate plans of scaling what I do from a coaching standpoint as far as taking on more clients, things of that nature. But I do envision myself taking on new coaches and mentoring them. Right. So that's something that I've started doing. I'm a part of a group called iLead. We've got 32 coaches in there now. I run a weekly call with them. They troubleshoot their programming, client problems, movement patterns, all that stuff off of me. We talk about it. We brainstorm it. I've gone through a 16-week programming course with them. So that's my way of not scaling myself, but helping other coaches in this industry because I do love what I do. And I want other people to find success because me, Justin, and Jeremy, we're the minority, right? I was at a facility who had 9 coaches. I was the lead of all 3 facilities who had 17 coaches overall. There's only 2 of us left coaching. Right. Jeremy was at D1. It's him and Kevin probably the last 2 of the 15 that probably came through there.
Kevin Klug. So it's the industry.
It's
a
hard.
lot of people fizzle out.
It's a 3-year. Jeremy's kind of partner in the weight room, Austin. He just left. Right. And he's been there a while, but right on that kind of that 3-year brink. Right. So it's hard, those 3-4 a.m. mornings and all that stuff. If you don't find, you know, some pretty early success, and it's hard to put in the hours, right? But I have a calling to help people get better at this, and
cool.
And there's more than enough people in this world that need help.
Yeah.
Fitness, athletes, all the all the above, right? We can help solve a lot of issues if you program and you train accordingly.
Awesome, man. Well, I just appreciate you sharing that, bro. And there's no doubt in my mind that you won't see that vision come to fruition one day because you're putting in the work, right? And you have that passion, you have that drive and desire to pay it forward and help the next generation of trainers and coaches that come on. Because the reality is there's a ton of coaches out there, but there's not a lot of great ones, right? So it's just kind of separating the average and just bridging that gap and making the information and the resources more available to people who truly have a calling to be a coach or mentor, and just equipping them with the tools, man. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jay Holt, the community, Justin Todd. I appreciate you guys. But you can find Joshua Alpha Strength on Instagram.
Josh_Alpha Strength.
And then are you anywhere else, Twitter?
I mean, I check Twitter, but I don't do much on that.
Mainly on Instagram.
Yeah, that's right.
But you can check out his Friday Arm Farm. I mean, just incredible. I got to come join.
Come on. Yeah, that's obviously my favorite day. But
yeah. Not only you take the kids to school, but it's Arm Farm.
That's right.
Right. So I appreciate you sharing your story, man. Sitting down with me and your testimony, your journey, and appreciate everything you do, man. Keep leading, brother. Love you, man.
Appreciate you.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you next time on Stay Ready Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to Stay Ready, the podcast. If you like today's episode, please comment below, like, and subscribe to our channel. I appreciate you all. We'll see you next time, and stay ready.